Let's talk about how to narrate a story in English. Storytelling is a powerful way to learn and improve English. When we tell a story, we connect with people. We share ideas, feelings, and experiences. It's like painting a picture with words. Narrating a story helps you to think in English, to feel the language, and to speak with confidence. When I started learning English, I loved listening to stories. They were simple but full of meaning. I remember my teacher telling us a story about a little bird who wanted to fly high. The bird was scared at first, but with time, the bird learned to trust its wings. This story was more than just words. It taught me about courage and patience. It also helped me learn new words and phrases in English. To narrate a story in English, start with a clear and simple idea. Think about what you want to say. Picture the story in your mind. This helps you to see the scenes and characters clearly. When you speak, try to make your voice calm and steady. A calm voice helps people to listen and understand better. It also makes you feel more relaxed. One tip is to use simple words. Simple words are easy to understand. They make your story clear. For example, instead of saying astonished, you can say surprised. Instead of saying commence, you can say start. Simple words are powerful. They help your audience to follow the story easily. When I was a student, I used to read stories out loud. I read them slowly, paying attention to each word. This helped me to improve my pronunciation. One day I was reading a story about a brave knight. The knight had to face many dangers, but he never gave up. As I read, I felt like I was the knight, facing my own challenges and learning English. This made me feel strong and motivated. Another tip is to use short sentences. Short sentences are easy to follow. They keep the story moving. They also give you time to think about what you want to say next. For example, instead of saying, "The brave knight, who had fought many battles before, decided to embark on a dangerous journey to save the kingdom from the evil dragon," you can say, "The brave knight had fought many battles. He decided to save the kingdom. The journey was dangerous, but he was ready." Using short sentences also helps to keep the listener's attention. When the sentences are short, the listener does not get lost. They stay with you, eager to hear what happens next. I remember a time when I was asked to tell a story to a group of friends. I was nervous, but I decided to tell a story that I loved. It was about a young girl who found a magical book in the forest. The book could make her wishes come true. As I told the story, I noticed that my friends were listening closely. They were smiling and nodding. This made me feel more confident. I realized that the story was not just about the words. It was about how I told it, how I made them feel. To make your story interesting, use your voice. Change your tone to match the mood of the story. If something exciting happens, make your voice lively. If something sad happens, make your voice soft. This helps to bring the story to life. It makes the listener feel the emotions of the characters. One time I was telling a story to my younger brother. It was a scary story about a haunted house. As I spoke, I made my voice deep and slow. My brother's eyes were wide with fear, but he was also excited. He wanted to know what would happen next. When I finished, he said, "That was the best story ever. This made me happy." I knew that the way I used my voice had made the story special. You can also use pauses in your storytelling. Pauses give the listener time to think. They create suspense. When you pause, the listener wonders what will happen next. It's like holding their hand and guiding them through the story. Once I was narrating a story to my classmates. It was about a detective who was solving a mystery. When I reached a crucial point in the story, I paused. Everyone leaned in, waiting for what would happen next. After a moment, I continued, and they all sighed with relief. That pause made the moment more intense and exciting. Another important tip is to practice. The more you practice, the better you become. Try telling the same story again and again. Each time, you will find new ways to make it better. You will feel more comfortable and confident. Practice also helps you to remember the story. This way, you can tell it without looking at notes. When I was learning English, I practiced by telling stories to my mirror. I pretended that the mirror was my audience. I told stories about my day, about my dreams, and about my favorite books. This helped me to improve my speaking skills. It also made me more confident in using English. You can also practice by recording yourself. Listen to the recording and notice how you sound. Do you speak clearly? Do you use the right tone? Are your sentences too long? By listening to yourself, you can find areas to improve. This will help you to become a better storyteller. Storytelling is not just about speaking. It's also about listening. When you listen to others, you learn how they tell stories. You notice how they use their voice, their words, and their pauses. This gives you ideas for your own storytelling. I remember listening to a famous storyteller on the radio. Her stories were simple but full of emotion. She made me feel like I was part of the story. I learned a lot from listening to her. I learned how to use my voice to express feelings, how to create suspense, and how to make the listener feel connected to the story. Another thing to remember is that mistakes are okay. Everyone makes mistakes when they speak a new language. The important thing is to keep going. If you forget a word or make a mistake, don't worry. Just continue the story. Your audience will still enjoy it. I once made a mistake while telling a story to my class. I forgot a word and paused for a long time. I felt embarrassed, but I didn't give up. I found another word and continued the story. After the class, my teacher told me mistakes are part of learning. What matters is that you didn't stop. You kept going, and that's what makes you a good storyteller. Her words stayed with me. It's also helpful to use body language when you tell a story. Your hands, face, and eyes can add to the story. They help to show the emotions of the characters. For example, if a character is happy, you can smile. If a character is scared, you can widen your eyes. Body language makes the story more vivid and real. I remember watching a storyteller who used a lot of body language. He moved his hands, raised his eyebrows, and changed his expressions. His movements made the story come alive. Even though his words were simple, his body language added depth to the story. I tried to use body language in my own storytelling, and it made a big difference. Using props can also make your storytelling more interesting. Props are objects that you can use to show what is happening in the story. For example, if your story is about a pirate, you can hold a toy sword. If your story is about a chef, you can wear a chef's hat. Props make the story more visual and fun. One time I used a small toy car while telling a story to a group of children. The story was about a race car driver who wanted to win a big race. As I told the story, I moved the toy car around, showing how the driver sped through the track. The children were excited and clapped their hands. The prop made the story more engaging for them. When you tell a story, try to connect with your audience. Look at them, smile, and make them feel included. Ask questions like, "What do you think will happen next?" or "Have you ever felt like this?" This makes the audience feel like they are part of the story. It also keeps them interested and involved. I once asked my audience, "What would you do if you found a magic lamp?" Everyone started sharing their ideas. Some said they would wish for money, others for happiness. This interaction made the story more lively and fun. It also gave me a chance to learn new words and phrases. Lastly, enjoy the process. Storytelling is a joyful activity. It's a way to share a part of yourself with others. When you enjoy telling the story, your audience will enjoy listening to it. Your passion and excitement will shine through your words. When I first started narrating stories, I was nervous. But as I continued, I began to enjoy it. I loved seeing the smiles on people's faces, hearing their laughter, and feeling their emotions. Storytelling became a way for me to express myself, to connect with others, and to grow as a person. As you continue to practice, you will find your own style of storytelling. You will discover what works best for you. You might like to tell funny stories, or maybe you prefer stories with a lot of action. Whatever your style, remember that the key is to be yourself. Let your personality shine through your words. As you find your own style, remember that storytelling is about more than just the words. It's about the feelings you share, the connections you make, and the experiences you create for your listeners. Every story is an opportunity to bring people together, to inspire them, and to leave them with something to think about. When I was younger, I loved listening to my grandmother's stories. She had a special way of telling them that made me feel warm and safe. Even though her stories were simple, they were full of wisdom. She told me stories about her childhood, about the lessons she learned, and about the people she loved. These stories were like treasures to me, and I learned so much from them. One of the most important things I learned from my grandmother's stories was the power of imagination. She always encouraged me to use my imagination when telling stories. She would say, "Close your eyes and see the story in your mind. Let your imagination guide you." This advice has stayed with me, and I use it every time I tell a story. Imagination is a storyteller's best friend. It helps you to create vivid pictures in your mind, which you can then share with your audience. When you use your imagination, your stories become more colorful, more exciting, and more engaging. Your audience can see the pictures you paint with your words, and they feel like they are part of the story. I remember telling a story about a magical garden to a group of children. I used my imagination to describe the garden in great detail. I talked about the tall, glowing trees, the sparkling rivers, and the flowers that sang when the wind blew. The children were amazed. They could see the garden in their minds, and they were completely captivated by the story. Using your imagination also helps you to make your stories unique. No two storytellers have the same imagination, so no two stories are the same. Your imagination is what makes your stories special. It's what gives them a personal touch that no one else can replicate. Another tip I learned from my grandmother is to always have a message in your story. A good story not only entertains but also teaches something valuable. It might be a lesson about kindness, courage, or friendship. Whatever the message, it should be clear and meaningful. When I was in school, I told a story about a little boy who was afraid of the dark. The boy learned that the dark wasn't something to be afraid of, but rather something that could be beautiful and peaceful. The message of the story was about facing your fears and finding beauty in unexpected places. After I told the story, my teacher said, "That was a wonderful story with an important lesson. You've taught us all something today." Having a message in your story makes it more powerful. It gives the listener something to think about after the story is over. It also makes your story memorable. People will remember the story not just for the words, but for the lesson they learned from it. One more thing to remember is to keep your audience in mind. Think about who you are telling the story to and what they might enjoy. If you're telling a story to children, you might want to include fun and playful elements. If your audience is adults, you might choose a more serious or thought-provoking story. Tailoring your story to your audience helps to keep them engaged and interested. I once told a story to a group of teenagers about a young hero who fought against all odds to save his village. The story was full of action, adventure, and bravery. The teenagers loved it because it was exciting and relatable. They could see themselves in the hero, and they were inspired by his courage. Knowing your audience also helps you to choose the right language and tone. For example, if you're telling a story to beginners in English, you should use simple words and clear sentences. If your audience is more advanced, you can use more complex language and ideas. Adjusting your storytelling to fit your audience ensures that everyone can enjoy and understand the story. Another memory that stands out for me is the first time I told a story in front of a large audience. I was nervous, but I remembered all the tips and lessons I had learned. I took a deep breath, imagined the story in my mind, and began to speak. As I told the story, I could see the audience's faces light up with interest. They were smiling, nodding, and reacting to the story. By the time I finished, I felt a sense of accomplishment. The audience applauded, and I knew that I had shared something special with them. That experience taught me that storytelling is a powerful way to connect with people. It doesn't matter where you're from or what language you speak, everyone loves a good story. And when you tell a story, you're not just speaking, you're sharing a part of yourself with others. As you continue to practice storytelling, you'll discover that each story you tell is a journey. It's a journey for both you and your audience. You guide them through the twists and turns of the story, and together you explore new ideas and emotions. The best stories are the ones that take you on a journey and leave you with a sense of wonder and fulfillment. I once told a story about a young girl who went on a journey to find a hidden treasure. Along the way, she faced many challenges, but she never gave up. When she finally found the treasure, she realized that it wasn't gold or jewels, but the love and support of her friends and family. The audience loved the story, not just because of the adventure, but because of the message about the true meaning of treasure. In storytelling, the journey is just as important as the destination. It's the journey that keeps your audience engaged and makes the story memorable. So, take your time when you tell a story. Enjoy the process and let your audience enjoy it with you. One final tip is to always be open to learning and improving. Storytelling is a skill that you can develop over time. The more you practice, the better you will become. Listen to other storytellers, read books, and watch performances. Learn from different styles and techniques and incorporate them into your own storytelling. I still remember the first time I watched a professional storyteller perform. She was amazing. Her voice was clear, her expressions were lively, and her story was captivating. I learned so much from watching her. I realized that storytelling is not just about words, it's about how you use your voice, your body, and your emotions to create a complete experience for your audience. As you continue to learn and grow as a storyteller, you will find that your stories become richer and more impactful. You will be able to share deeper messages, create stronger connections with your audience, and leave a lasting impression with your words. Storytelling is a beautiful art, and it's one of the best ways to improve your English. It helps you to think in English, to express yourself clearly, and to build your confidence. So keep practicing, keep learning, and keep telling stories. Your journey as a storyteller has just begun, and there are so many wonderful stories waiting to be told.